With the Resident Evil 4 reimagining scheduled to release early next year, something that I've kind of wondered and thought about is should Albert Wesker make a physical appearance for the reimagining? As we all know, in the original RE4, Wesker was always working behind the scenes, having Ada and Krauser execute his plans for him. But I do think there is a good amount of potential if they were to decide to have him show up physically for the reimagining. For one, they could explain how it is he actually gets a dominant plaga leading into Resident Evil 5, because in the original RE4, Ada double-crossed him, keeping the dominant plaga that she found and sending it to the organization that she was truly working for, while she sent Wesker a standard plaga instead. So I would really like to see them explain exactly how he had one come Resident Evil 5. I have seen some things where people have suggested like Ada was working for Tricell the whole time, and so she indirectly still gave Wesker the sample, and that's how he got it. But that doesn't really make sense to me, because in Resident Evil 5 there is a scene where Wesker is with Excella, and Excella says something that implies that Wesker came to her with Lost Plagas. And so it wouldn't make sense for Ada to then give Tricell, which Excella was head of, the sample that she found, only for Wesker to come to her with Lost Plagas. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't think that's what happened, and I would like some clarity on that. And the reimagining could do that. The reimagining could really explain to us where he got his sample. One thing that I do like is what the Resident Evil wiki page says. Now, you do have to take Wikipedia with a grain of salt, because it's a Wikipedia page, anyone can add anything, but it does say that Wesker got his dominant plaga sample by finding the dead corpse of Krauser and extracting his plaga from his arm, and that's where he got his sample from. That would be really cool if they were to implement that in the reimagining, and you could even do it in like a Code Veronica style way, where Wesker shows up at the island during the end of the whole thing where Sadler's been killed and all this other stuff, and he basically is demanding the sample be handed to him. Maybe he catches on to the fact that Ada is going to double cross him at some point, so he goes to the island to take matters in his own hands, and maybe he uses Ashley as like a hostage at this point, because Ashley is all by herself at this point while Leon is fighting Sadler. So this would be the perfect point for Wesker to use her as a hostage to make a trade for the sample, and they get Ashley back. And I could see like Ada doing something crafty where she's able to make the trade and still get the sample, and so she would eventually get to leave with the sample, Leon would get to leave with Ashley, and then from there Wesker would have to make a last ditch effort to collect the body of Krauser and get the sample from his arm. Something like that would be really cool to see. And you can even implement like a boss fight for Ada in separate ways going up against Wesker. That would give her a brand new unique boss fight exclusive to her campaign, something that was missing in the original separate ways. All her boss fights were boss fights that Leon had previously fought in the main game, Krauser and Sadler. Although her Sadler fight was more unique as it was the humanoid version, it was still all the boss fights Leon had fought previously. So I think there's some potential with having Wesker actually show up physically. I think that there's some cool stuff that they could do, and then obviously they wouldn't defeat Wesker in that moment. It'd have to be some like, you know, Ada activates the bomb and then 3 bombs explode in the island and it causes debris to like fall and, you know, split them apart to where they can escape from Wesker. Something like that would obviously have to happen, but I do think it'd be cool. We would actually get to see Leon and Wesker interact for the very first time on screen in the games, so that would be really cool to see for a brief moment. And you would have him show up at the very end. That way it wouldn't take away from Sadler and stuff like that throughout the game. So I do think there is a lot of potential there, but if they do decide to just keep him behind the scenes like he was in the original, I'd be completely down with that as well. This is just something I want to kind of talk about and make sort of a quick video discussing it, because it is something interesting, because this is going to be a reimagining. They are going to change some stuff up, so could Wesker potentially show up in the flesh? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I'll go ahead and end this video here. I shall see you all on the next one. See ya then.